When someone says, "I understand," most communicators relax. They assume that the message landed. The instructions were clear and the decisions were understood. And everyone is ready to move forward. But "I understand" may be the most dangerous phrase in communication because people say it when they understand, but they also say it when they're confused, embarrassed, distracted, even intimidated, or simply ready for you to stop talking. And by the time you discover the difference, the damage may already be done. In the last few videos, we've explored how to communicate complex ideas to people who may not share your experience. We talked about meeting people where they are, building a bridge between what they already understand and what you want them to learn, and creating curiosity before you begin explaining. But there is one final step that many communicators completely ignore: verification. Because creating interest is not the same as creating understanding. Explaining something clearly is not proof that the other person can use it, and hearing the words "I understand" tells you almost nothing. Today I'm going to show you how to realize false understanding and how strong communicators test whether ideas actually transferred. Most people do not deliberately lie about understanding. They are responding to social pressure. Imagine sitting in a meeting with a senior executive explains a new strategy. Everyone else is nodding, the presentation is moving quickly, and then the executive looks directly at you and asks, "Does that make sense?" What are you likely to say? Probably say yes. Not necessarily because you actually understand, but because saying no may make you feel unprepared. You may worry that you missed something obvious. You may not want to slow down the meeting. Or you may understand the individual words without understanding what they are now expected to do. The same thing happens with clients, employees, students, any audience really, even experienced professionals. People often protect their image before they reveal their confusion. That means the person with the most authority in the conversation has an additional responsibility. You cannot simply ask whether people understand. You have to create a safe and credible way for them to demonstrate it. One of the weakest questions in communication is, "Do you understand?" A close second is, "Does that make sense?" These are yes or no questions, and they strongly suggest the answer you want to hear. The listener knows that yes allows the conversation to continue. No requires them to admit confusion and ask you to explain everything again. So most people choose yes. Then the communicator walks away feeling successful. But nothing has actually been tested. Clear communication is not measured by how confident you felt while speaking. It's measured by what the other person can now understand, explain, decide, or do. There are 4 simple ways to test whether your message has actually transferred. First, ask them to explain it. Instead of asking, "Do you understand the new process?" ask something like this: "How would you explain this process to someone who hasn't or who wasn't in the meeting?" Now you can hear how they have organized the idea in their own mind. Do not demand your exact language. You're not testing memorization. You're listening for the central meaning. When someone can explain an idea clearly in their words, there's much stronger chance that they actually understand it. The second thing is ask them to apply it. Understanding becomes more visible when someone has to use the idea. Ask them, "How would you apply this to the project you're working on right now?" Or something like this: "What would you do differently based on what we just discussed?" A person may be able to repeat your explanation without knowing how to act on it. Application exposes that difference. Third, ask them to predict. Prediction requires deeper understanding. Ask something like this: "What do you think will happen if we ignore this problem?" Or you could say, "If we change this part of the strategy, what effect do you expect it to have?" Someone who has understanding or understands the underlying logic can usually anticipate at least some of the consequences. Someone who has merely memorized the language will struggle. Fourth, ask them to decide. The highest level of understanding appears when someone can make a reasoned decision. Ask them, given what we've discussed, which option would you choose and why? Now they must evaluate the information. They must identify what matters, and they must commit to a conclusion. Explanation shows recognition. Application shows practical understanding. Prediction shows structural understanding. Decision shows ownership. Imagine a manager tells a team, our priority this quarter is improving customer retention. Everyone nods. Everyone says they understand. But one employee thinks retention means answering support emails faster. Another thinks it means offering discounts. Another thinks it means reducing cancellations. And another thinks it means increasing subscription renewals. They all heard the same sentence, but they did not receive the same meaning. A stronger leader would ask something like this: what does improving retention change about the decisions your team will make this week? That question forces the strategy to become operational. One person might say, we should contact customers before their renewal date. Another might say something like, we need to identify the most common reason people cancel. Now the leader can see whether the team is aligned or merely agreeable. Agreement is not alignment. Silence is not clarity, and nodding is not evidence. False understanding is expensive. It creates missed deadlines, poor execution, confused clients, and sometimes duplicated work, and decisions that appear irrational only because different people were operating from different interpretations. Leaders often blame the listener. They say, I explained this. We discussed it in the meeting, or they told me that they understood. But communication is not complete when the message leaves your mouth. It's complete when the intended meaning survives inside another person's mind. That does not remove personal responsibility from the listener, but it does mean that strong communicators verify before the stakes become expensive. This completes the communication framework we've been building throughout this series. First, you create curiosity. Give people a reason to want the idea. Second, you build a bridge. Connect the new idea to something they already understand. Third, guide them through the explanation. Do not overwhelm them with every detail at once. And finally, verify the transfer. Ask them to explain it, apply it, predict it, or predict from it, or make a decision with it. Curiosity earns attention. Explanation transfers the idea. Verification turns the idea into capability. The next time someone tells you, I understand, do not accuse them of being confused. Don't embarrass them, and don't simply repeat the same explanation louder. Ask a better question. How would you explain this? Or how would you use it? Or even, what do you think happens next? What would you decide? The goal is not to catch people making mistakes. The goal is to discover misunderstanding while it is still inexpensive to correct. Because the strongest communicator is not the person who delivers the most impressive explanation. It is the person who can prove that understanding survived after the explanation ended. If this series has helped you communicate more clearly, subscribe and leave a comment. What is one question you use to find out whether someone truly understands? I'll see you in the next video.